RMC? Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, they got the new box out.
If you went
for
Fridays,
Ivan.
week,
Do you? Oh,
Right next to my
They-
transformer.
oh, nice. That's
Someone told me about it
probably what they were doing,
Friday.
filling the roads and then getting into the subdivisions. Kinda nice.
So,
There's Brandon. Some speech from last night. All right, we're close. All right, good afternoon. Welcome to the Warsaw-Wayne Township Fire Territory Protection Meeting. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll observe a moment of silence. All right, thank you. And let the minutes reflect, we do have a quorum of 4 of the 5 members. All members are present except Judy Stackhouse, who's absent. With that, we'll move to the approval of the minutes from the July 5th meeting. Those have been presented. And I would ask for an approval of those, either as presented or with edits as requested. Questions?
I would make a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
All right, Mike, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Brandon, I think you won.
Beat you to it.
All right. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Welcome to our visitors today. Nice and cool in here. Appreciate it. Dave, you can relax just a little bit.
I'm waiting for the adrenaline to stop kicking.
All right. Well, let's get started with reports from Lutheran EMS, their monthly report for June. So, welcome.
How are you?
Good. How you doing?
Good.
All right.
So we had another busy month, pretty consistent when you look at our summer months, getting started with 493 total encounters for this past month. When you looked at the month of June, 75% of those were patients that were treated and transported. As you look at our dispatch to in-service times, you'll see consistently that those were patients that were staying within our local healthcare network, which is a huge advantage for our communities. The other big thing that happened during the month of June, we also, as the hospital, with our affiliation, announced our renovation at the hospital, and so we'll be having about $30 million put into the hospital to enhance the surgical center. So we will also now be able to keep a lot more patients local. It'll enhance the cath lab capabilities and ensure that these patients that before we would take from the scene to Fort Wayne, we can now again keep local. So times, again, I'm very proud of our crews consistently, time and time again, even with the high call volume. As we all remember the lovely heat wave that came in June, they still continued to show up and did an excellent job on scene times. So you'll see our peak hours continue to be the afternoon. We're continuing to evaluate that and look at coverage and what kind of is consistent with that. So, any questions with our monthly report?
You made the comment about being able to keep folks local here. But I just want to make sure we're all understanding that you're servicing the entire community.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that's not always the case, correct?
What do you mean?
Well, not all of patients are going to the Lutheran facility. Some
Correct.
patients are going elsewhere.
Correct.
So
Yep.
I just want to make that.
Patients have the right to choose whatever facility they want to be transported to,
Sure.
and we are always compliant with that.
No, and I wasn't questioning that. I was just,
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure because it
Yep.
didn't sound, it sounded like it was all focused on, what you had talked about, and I just wanted to make sure everyone knew that we're, for that exact thing, and I appreciate that.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Questions? Okay,
Numbers look good.
all right, thank you.
Okay, yeah.
All right. Chief, you got the fire activity report.
Okay, thank you, sir. For the month of June, we had 325 calls. 46 of them were fire-related, and those fire-related are car fires, house fires, trash fires, mulch fires, smoke alarms, CO alarms, all the above there. Out of those 325 calls, 85 of them were overlapping. It's about 26%. At any given time, 26% of the time, we are getting multiple calls. Whether that be District 1 going into 2, District 3 going into 1. However, the way it worked out is we had multiple engines on different calls at the same time. And it seems like that number is jumping more and more each month. I mean, just our call volume alone went up about 25 calls. So we're steadily rising. It's probably because of the summer months. However, the city is getting bigger. We're getting more denser population and growing a little bit further north. But some of the larger fires, we did have a few mulch fires. One was on Escalade Way. It was extinguished. And it was right up against the structure. At 2680 Escalade Way, we extinguished the mulch fire and ventilated the structure. We had a grease fire at 3100 East Center Street. That was essentially self-extinguished with no extensions. A vehicle fire on 1980 North Detroit. It was in a parking lot. We extinguished and there was no other exposures. Another mulch fire on 1727 West Lake Street. That was extinguished with no exposures. We had a trash truck fire on 1700 Rosella in a parking lot there. And we were called for assistance by Pearston for an approximate 40-acre field fire at 6827 East 150. And we assisted Pearson with a grass truck and an engine. We had another bin fire on the 5th floor at Louis Dreyfus. We assisted Claypool with extinguishment. We were there for a few hours that night. Dumpster fires are becoming increasingly more common. We had another one of those on 525 Oak Glen Drive. Again, extinguished with no exposures. We had a debris fire. The guys did an awesome job. Could have got out of hand. It was a little windy that day. It was off of 1170 West Lake Street. It came in as a debris fire, but it kind of got into a trailer with a bunch of motorcycle parks. There was another mobile home close by, right on the edge of the tree line too, so they got a really good stop on that before it got a little out of control. And then we had a structure fire at 503 West Center Street. Guys did another great job. They contained it to the front porch. Then we had another vehicle fire on 228 North Fort Wayne Street, extinguished with no exposures. And what I mean by that is there was no houses that got caught or no ability for anything else to get caught. So those were our major fire calls. Assisted other agencies. We had a really bad accident with extrication on 4579 West US 30. We assisted Atwood with extrication. It was a semi-accident. It was a bad one. We had that field fire with Pearston, the bin fire with Claypool down at Louis Dreyfus, and then we had a water rescue up in Leesburg. However, upon our arrival, family members were able to successfully get the patient out of the water. So we didn't actually have to deploy the dive team, however they were en route. And we received aid from Winona on the structure fire on 503 West Center Street. And moving down to the medical and CARES calls, we had 180 EMS calls, and we had 144 in April. That was District 1 had 99, District 2 had 64, and District 3 had 16. The CARES call is what's jumped up instrumentally last month. We had 56 last month, and the month before that in April we had 20. So having Michaela here, she's ramping the program up, she's making follow-ups, she is doing a fantastic job. Michaela is doing a great job, and the CARES program is going really, really well. The rest of the stuff you guys can read at your leisure. We had a few. We actually had quite a month when the 30 bottlenecked and was getting all that road construction done. We had a significant amount of semi accidents on that road. Thankfully, the damage was more than the injuries. We didn't have any bad injuries, but we did have some pretty gnarly semi wrecks when that was bottlenecking and they were doing all that construction on the 30. It has since subsided. Training hours, we had 473. We are hosting DRIS coming to town this month, that series of dive classes. They'll be here mid-August, 13th through the 20th, to host the 3 dive classes. And so our guys are gearing up for that. And since it's summer, community service took a big back step because school's not in, but they did have an hour and a half of public education, Baker Youth Club. There's about 50 kids and 4 adults. Station 2, they just did their typical safety video and sprayed some water. Had a good time. And that is the monthly.
All right. Thank you. Questions?
On the CARES calls, have you noticed a direct impact yet on 911? For example, having somebody who would call 911 maybe on a daily basis, have you seen that curb any of those at all, to where we're not sending a truck with red lights and sirens to an address for the
Yes
second
and-
day in a row?
Yes and no. There are certain things that people just call 911 for.
Yeah.
But she's very, very good about following up after initial exposure with said person. She'll follow up. It's already on the calendar. You can hear her all day on the radio making these follow-ups. So those are potential 911 calls that we're not getting because she's making those follow-ups very regularly. And she's doing a remarkable job.
Chief, can I ask Chris to jump in on that? Because I know that that's been the whole focus of this program. And we're early. We're kind of feeling our way through this. You know, you're making a great point. That's the whole focus here, is to try and provide that alternative so that we're not overutilizing our services. And I know that's been at the top of your mind, and I'd sure like to just hear your thoughts as this is evolving.
She is, as the chief said, she's making a lot of follow-up. She's also proactively touching those people just to make sure that they have whatever resources they need so that they won't call. She's got several people that she visits probably a couple times a week. For whatever reason. We have one young lady we're trying to get into some substance counseling. That's a little bit of a struggle with her. She was calling daily. She has not called in the past couple weeks. So yes, we're seeing a lot of that go away, but we still have one gentleman who I believe at one point in 17 days, he called 911 over 50 times. Wow. And Bowen is involved in his situation. He loves Bowen, but then it becomes a question of what will he allow us to do to help him fix this situation. So we're kind of limited a lot of times about what people are allowed to do, but we're seeing a lot of that repeat calling drop way off. It's never going to be perfect. You're still going to have people who have no other outlet, no other resource, and so they pick that phone up and call 911. But I think we're seeing positive results out of that. Yeah, I think it's doing kind of what we anticipated, but at the same time, Michaela's taken the approach, and we've really supported this, of being that proactive instead of just reactive, so that we're trying to visit before they call. So I think it's working. We're learning as we go. As the mayor said, we're new at this. We're learning as we do things. Michaela and I have conversations every day about how certain things should play and what that should look like. And we've involved Bowen Center in those conversations. We've even involved Prosecutor Hampton in a couple of conversations about what does maybe different angle of attack look like for some of these situations, as he is a stakeholder to the CARES program, so he's been helpful with that. I think it's going very well, but again, still learning, still trying to figure it out. I think a lot of communities, more and more communities, are adopting something similar to this. But in every community, you have to figure out where you fit, where that puzzle comes together, and what piece you have to play to make it work. Lutheran's getting ready to start their mobile integrated health program, which we got certified at the same time they did but our program looks completely different than what theirs does. So what does that puzzle look like when it comes together? It's going to take a while to figure that out. But we have conversations with them. Hey, are you doing anything about this address? Yeah, I'm talking to so-and-so. We've already visited that. Great. Well, we're going to back away then. Okay. So we're trying to help each other out.
Brandon, I really like the question because that's the crux of where we're at with this. And as Chris said, we see in other communities, how does it work? Every community is different. Every community has different needs. And we're still learning. We're still trying to figure this out. I can almost guarantee you it's not going to happen with one person. It's not going to happen with one great person. But the awareness has been raised. The partners are coming alongside. We're appreciative of Lutheran with their program and anyone else that recognizes that we need to focus on this. And I really think that was the reason that we kicked this thing off is it's got to come to the forefront. And I'm so pleased with the way it's going, but it's just a start. But you're right, we've got to maintain our focus. That's the reason we're doing it. We can't provide all of these ancillary services to everybody that's got a concern, but we can certainly elevate those that have an acute concern, and that's really what this is about.
Well, I'm super thankful for this program. And at first, honestly, I was a little skeptical, not knowing exactly what it would entail, but, from what we're hearing, it's helping the residents, but it's also helping the folks who are on the ambulances and on the fire trucks not go again and again and again to the same call. And you're talking about a boy who cried wolf, sort of.
Yep.
And it's hard, and the burnout rate is, those kinds of things contribute to the burnout rate. So doing something to help that, it's great to hear, and I'm glad that Michaela's doing well. It's a good report.
She has been a great addition to this program. I can't speak highly enough of what she's doing. She is great. There are days when she hits me up 3 or 4 times for some different ideas. And every once in a while, you have to slow down just a little bit. But she's passionate about it. She's got a huge heart, and she's helping these people. It's great.
That sounds like a win-win.
I'm really thankful. Chief Holderman came in at a time when this project was ready to kick off and was uber supportive of it, obviously, for everybody that understands what we're trying to do. And he's been great with it. And Chris has been working to get this program off the ground. We've been working for 2 or 3 years to get this rolling, and getting the proper individual now, I think, gives us a position to make an impact, and I think we are. So thank you very much. Okay, thanks, Chris. Any other questions? Garrett, are you finished? I'm sorry, Chief.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I am.
All right. All right, well then let's move into the expenditure reports before we get to the budgets. We'll start with the operating fund. That information has been presented.
Yeah, there's a few in there that I just highlighted on page 2 of the detail history. There's 10,000. That's the quarterly clothing allowance that came out. On page 3 of the detail history, there's our diesel at the very bottom, 4,100. A couple other expenses in there. There's a foam cost on page 4 for $11.94. That's just the foam that we use for structural firefighting. And on page 5, you'll notice some pretty decently large numbers. That's engine 13.3. That's the truck that's due to be replaced next year. She's showing some wear and tear. We're putting some money in there for replacing some parts. And that's really about it on the operating side. Actually, I will note on page 7, under the Drew Sil, that was his dive class to be certified as a dive rescue 1 down there in Fishers. So that's why it's $2,200. But now we have somebody that can teach dive rescue 1 in our community, which is fantastic.
Questions? All right, we'll need approval for the expenditures. Is there a motion to approve as presented?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, let's move on to the equipment replacement fund. Looks like there was limited activity there, although there was a
Yeah, there's a
There
couple.
was a couple big ones, one big one in particular.
So the 89,955, that's PO'd from the 2020 budget. That's the new battalion chief BC-13 vehicle that I was hoping to have here, but they incorrectly striped it. So next territory meeting, you guys will be able to see it. It's not in service yet because we're waiting for them to fix that, so. That was that purchase, and then the new hire helmets, we had the 2 new hires and the 2 that are actually starting next week. And that's just for their helmets. That was it out of that account.
All right. Questions? Is there a motion to approve the equipment replacement expenditures as presented for the month of June?
So moved.
All right, Brandon, thank you. Is there a second?
Sure.
Michael, I saw you bobbing your head. All right. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right. With no unfinished business, let's move on to new business. Again, I guess before the budgets, we do have a training grant acceptance that we would ask your permission to accept. Chief?
Yeah, so back in early May, we requested permission to apply for a grant for window simulators for our training center. We were granted, we weren't granted the full amount that we originally put in for, but we were granted $5,360, which will allow us to buy 2, what we wanted to do. We're just not getting as much glass replacement as we requested, but it is 100% reimbursement, so obviously we would only put $5,360 into it. With permission from the mayor, we are supposed to respond back to the department, or the Department of Homeland Security by August 1st, which was just a couple days ago. So he did allow us to do that, but we are just asking permission now at this meeting and then the Board of Works meeting to accept that grant.
All right, questions? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the acceptance of the grant?
So moved.
Second.
All right, further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right. The minutes reflect the vote was 4-0 in favor. All right, so we will go through the budgets. Last night, Chief presented the budgets to the council for the first time, so he's had a chance to go through these. We're obviously, as we discussed last night, we're facing a challenging budgeting year with inflation and with all the issues on increased costs for labor, fuel, construction, contracts, materials, you name it. And we're certainly have done well to keep our spending within lines in the past. We've done well to keep our tax rate down because of our growth. But as I talked to the council last night, we're looking at at least a 5% potential increase this year as allowed by the state to keep up with these inflationary times. It's still going to require the taxes be raised, if indeed that's the case. But we can keep our growth of our community, we can broaden that tax base and offset some of that. So the purpose today is just to look at what our needs are from a fire territory perspective. What do we need to get the job done? And we're going to have to work through, there's a lot of variables here. We don't know what our tax base is yet. We don't know what our insurance rates are going to come back in at yet. But we've got to set a budget that we cannot exceed and may have to go in and do without some. So at this point, I'm going to have Chief present the operating fund budget 2020-2243 and just go through the expectations for 2023 as things look right now.
Yes, sir, thank you.
Chief, as we follow along, are you going to use the explanatory sheets?
Yeah, I made
Okay.
my own little cheat sheet, but yes, it's from the
Okay.
explanatory sheet, yep. There's also the numbers from 2022 in there, in case we gotta go
Right.
back to that, so. So starting with personal services of our operating fund 2243, salaries and wages is up 11.9% from the 2022 budget, and that is because of the mid-year increases, the 4% projected increase for 2023, and that also includes a third of the director of HR, the clerk's office, and the city engineer's salaries, which brought it up to 11.91. Employee benefits is up 7.62% from 2022. Medical and dental is slightly inflated per HR. We do every year based off of the inflation. We're waiting for hard numbers to get a better idea of what the actual percentage that's going to go up. Pension slightly increased due to the mid-year raises and the 2023 pay increases. The other personal services went up only 1.65%, and that's basically because we added the CARES position cell phone and a clothing allowance for that position. Any questions on personal services? Okay, moving on to supplies. No increase on office supplies, staying the same as 2022. Operating supplies, we bumped it up 25% because of the significant increase in fuel costs. This is our last year of the LASSIS contract. A new one's currently in the works. I believe going to be presented to the Board of Works this Friday. Until we know what that number is, we're just waiting on those hard figures. Right now, it's 25%. Repair and maintenance, no increase, stay the same as 2022. And other supplies is up 12% from the 2022 budget. And that's because we added funds to our fire prevention program and community risk reduction. It's been an incredibly successful program over the years, and it's getting bigger each year, just requiring more supplies. And with inflation and lack thereof supplies, it takes a while to get what we need. So I kind of reduced a little bit of the numbers from the smoke alarms because we do have a surplus right now in our storage, and kind of added that to our fire prevention program. Excuse me. Any questions on supplies? Okay, other services and charges. Professional services are up 8.67%. Attorney and financial consultants stayed the same at $20,000. However, we did go up a little bit on our new hire psych physicals because we do have the potential of some retirements next year. We have 2 confirmed and 1 potential. So the possibility of 3 is that we're going to have to send new hires down to Indy to get their psych evaluations and all that stuff done. So we added a little bit of money in there to cover those costs. Communication and transport is up 27%, and that's the main reason is we added another 10 grand onto training, and that's basically because the increased training funds due to the cost inflation of travel expenses. Comcast, until we get fiber ran to Station 3, we're always going to have to pay Comcast, which we allocate $15,000 a year, and postage remain the same. Printing and advertisements up 12.5%, and the main reason for that is we increased advertisement due to inflation, and we're going to be putting a firefighter ad out, we know, in January or February, so we do know we're going to do that. We just wanted to have the extra money in there to account for it. Insurance is going up projected to go up 13.58%, and that is to the addition of the new pumper, Engine 1's new pumper that we got approved and hopefully receive in the mid or late year of 2023, and an admin vehicle for 2023 will be added to our auto insurance, and we also inflated it 10% awaiting the 2023 rates. Utility service, it's up 6% from 2022, and the additional $3,000 was added for office space renting right behind the city hall here for our admin, to get some of our admin people out of our stations because we're kind of busting at the seams. So this building right at the end of the parking lot, we are hoping to rent next year. So we added $3,000 in there just for utilities. And we'll get to the renting a little bit down here. Repairs and maintenance is up 12%. And that is mainly our yearly required testing of fire equipment, repairs and maintenance of fire equipment, pump testing, hose testing, ladder inspections. That's what covers all that. Emergency reporting, building security, and ZOL monitors. Rentals. The number is scary. It's up 372%. We added 12,000 to that out of our normal 3,000, and that's to rent, putting about 1,000 towards rent per month at that space right here at City Hall, so about 12,000.
Yeah, we don't have anything specifically identified other than we know we need space for those folks to put together. And we've identified a few spots, but at this point, we want to put it in the budget so that if it comes up, we've got the ability to get a busy group to where they can hear themselves think instead of being in the middle of a firehouse, which is not a bad place to be, but when you're trying to get work done, I know it will be, it'll make a lot of sense to get that done.
Yeah. Any questions so far on that? The debt service for the 2016 GO bond, that's for Station 3, $9,000 a year, that hasn't changed. Subscriptions and dues went up 3.91%. The trash collection is specifically for our training center. And the subscriptions include, I have a list if anybody is curious on what the subscriptions are. Moving on to capital outlays on machinery and equipment is up 10%. We have a pretty significant amount of equipment that's expiring next year. That can include a lot of our SCBA's, the bottles themselves, vests. We have TRT equipment that's expiring, dive stuff that's expiring. As you guys all know, anything that has an NFPA sticker attached to it has an expiration date, unfortunately. And 2023 is a year for repairs. So we're just trying to, the idea was to allocate as much as I can in the operating so I don't have to spend as much in the replacement, because I want to keep that for our apparatus, because those prices aren't going down either, and those are very expensive trucks. So, but we did allocate $55,000 for machinery and equipment, and $35,000 for specialty rescue equipment and capital outlays. Our total budget from 2022 has a 11.04% increase. So right around inflation. Is there any questions for the operating budget?
So I'm sure you mentioned it, but I want to just make sure you all know this is building in a 4% wage increase for our employees, our firefighters, and civilian employees for 2023.
Yes.
This comes on the heels of mid-year adjustments as well, as we're addressing the critical importance of paying our folks what they're worth and trying to keep them in a spiraling inflationary environment. So obviously that impacts this budget. We've mentioned, Garrett, you had mentioned, it might have been, I might make that was probably in the other budget that you had the 200,000 in for station repairs. That's the next budget, so I won't comment on that right now. But the need for a little bit of administrative space is probably about the only other thing that really we're looking at different from last year. Number of firefighters is the same, number of employees is the same. It's the times we live in. All right, I'm going to ask that you approve this budget if you so feel inclined. And again, this is not binding. This just lets the council know that this is the wishes of the fire territory. They're supportive of this budget. All of us understanding that we can't support a budget that we can't fund. So unless there's anything in here specifically that you don't feel is representative or can be or should be supported, I would ask that you consider that.
Sometimes I'll have some of the firefighters maybe approach me about concerns, and I haven't heard any concerns on this budget specifically, so that's a good thing. And I'm surely the potential to move to an administrative space is probably bittersweet for you again, like Mayor Joe said, that could actually get some work done, but I'm sure not being around the
Yeah.
firehouse would be kind of bittersweet.
It's kind of easy for me to get sidetracked. I get back in line.
Well, you're a valuable resource. The whole administrative team is, but it's hard to get stuff done when you're being summoned constantly.
Blue.
And you're 20 years, right?
20 years.
She's got 20 left, she told me.
How many?
20.
Oh, 20 more.
Yeah.
I don't think you would want me around for 20 more. I don't know my name by then.
All right, so, Mike, I know you sat through this last night. Any comments or, and again, this is in your role as fire territory protection. This is not necessarily as council member,
Right.
so.
I think it might be worth noting, just that we really try to judiciously take our fiduciary responsibilities seriously. An 11% increase really amounts to perhaps you could say maybe a 2% increase, given the fact that the number I keep hearing for inflationary rise is 9%. Also, I think what we spend gives our fire territory team members the tools that they need to service the community in such a way that it affects our insurance ISO rating. And that ISO is important for everybody in the fire territory in helping to keep their insurance costs down. So even though the budget may be going up somewhat, that it could be said that it's offset by the fact that our insurance costs are lower. And that's really the only comment I have on it. I don't see anything in here that's, a luxury item. We need these tools. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you. Gordy, any comments?
Appreciate it, sir.
No, I have none. I understand what's going on here.
Okay. And I've gone through the budget with Chief. We had a very good conversation. I know Shirley helped out, and we really dug into it and tried to come up with something that was sustainable, facing a little bit of uncertainty with where we're going to go. So I feel like this budget is in a much better position than maybe we have in the past to be able to work and to adjust and adapt as these other factors play out through this budget year. So I would concur, I think, with your thoughts that this budget makes sense, at least as a preliminary recommendation to the council, understanding that there's still a lot of information that we need to nail down the final budget that we don't have, that we will unearth. So, is there a motion to recommend this budget to the council?
So moved.
Brandon,
I'll
thank you. Second, Gordy. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Great, thank you. And now we've got three other smaller budgets. The next one's pretty significant, but the last two are pretty small. Let's go through those three, if you want to just zip through those,
Start
and
with
then
the
we'll
fund,
take,
4410?
yep, then we'll
Okay.
take these individually when we're done and approve those if you so desire.
So just go through all of them right now?
Yep,
Okay, so we'll do the equipment replacement fund, 4410. We'll skip to repairs and maintenance. So as he was alluding to say, Station 1, Station 2, they got a little wear and tear. They've been around since the 80s. Some of the stuff's original in there, so we've allocated 100,000 per station. Unfortunately, 100,000 does not go a long ways these days, so we're hoping over the next year or two or three, that inflation kind of goes down, building material goes down to where we can get a little more bang for our buck. But for right now, I'm comfortable with 100,000 per station to kind of start replacing some bathrooms and fixing some stuff up inside and in the bay. I know Mr. Clondaris, you kind of saw the rips and scars in the insulation in Station 2 space. So we do got some work to do, and I do feel comfortable allocating that money to do the station repairs. I just found out today, we were denied our training center improvement grant. So there is, the reason I put that $50,000 in for training center improvement is if we didn't get the grant, we still need to put concrete out there to make things safer to kind of, right now it's just dirt and rock. And when we do extrication, the fluids and glass and stuff get in the rock, it makes it really difficult for us to clean it up. Kind of becomes an environmental hazard if we don't do our due diligence in cleaning any fuel or anything up. And, you know, it damages our hose, dragging it through mud and rocks all the time. So we just wanted to put some, this isn't going to be a every year thing, but we just kind of wanted to put something in there for next year just so we can get a decent amount of concrete down to make it a better environment down when we're training down there. The other equipment, as stated, was dive equipment, TRT. There's an admin vehicle and a Station 1 pumper. I did attach a apparatus breakdown sheet on the life expectancy in there. We are slated to replace 2, but because of the cost, I only put 1 admin vehicle in there because of the new pumper jumped up about $200,000 from what we purchased Squad 4. It's the same exact truck. Fortunately, we got in before the July 1st. Cummins motor went up another 6%, which would have added another $80,000 onto that. So I'm glad we got that done when we got it done. Dive, they need to replace their pony bottles, which is it's a secondary breathing apparatus that goes right here instead of having the big fin that gets caught on everything. It kind of mimics what PD has. At TRT equipment, we have struts that are expiring. Again, NFPA, they are aluminum, but they do expire. We would kind of bring those down to the training center and use those for training activities after we get them replaced. PPE is just the gear replacement that our fire marshal projects that we're going to need based off of our inventory on the gear that we need to, because that also expires. New hire equipment and uniforms, SCBA bottles, personal protective, basically the vests that need to be replaced, and the one-time purchase of a new fit tester to do SCBA fit testing every year. It's an old machine and we just need to get it replaced. That won't be in there next budget year. So there is a few things that we do need to replace. It is a significant amount of money, but it happens every 10 or so years.
All right, and this is the part where I certainly support the structural repairs and remodels to kind of keep the maintenance up on those stations. Those stations are getting old. We've put money into those, but at this point, this is what we do. These are obviously very functional stations, and we need to keep them as such. So I would support that part of the budget. And I know this equipment these are from lists and projections that have been part of the planning for some time. Obviously, the availability is a concern. The cost increases are a concern, but the budget at least gives us the intention that this is what we might need. And again, we have to be flexible enough, build these budgets to where if we need something, it's available, there's money allocated for it. Questions? All right. Chief, you want to go through the Fire Pension Fund 8801?
Yes, sir. So the majority of these numbers are determined by the state. However, we do have a few items in there under office supplies allocated $300, legal services $3,000, and transportation $300. As far as everything else is concerned, it is kind of dictated by the state. Does anybody have any questions on the pension?
All right. And then your final fund, the hazmat response.
So the Hazmat Fund it's basically a reimbursement fund for when we do when we use hazmat items on a call. The best example I can give you is the oil absorbent. That's pretty much the main thing that we get reimbursed for. I mean, we used a pallet and a half on a semi-accident on just one call. So we allocate 1,200. That's based off of the current prices right now. That'll allow us to buy 2 pallets of oil absorbent, barring any price changes. And then we allocated 3,000 for decon equipment that needs to be replaced. That will be a one-time deal. That's not going to be in everything. But we can only spend what we got in there, and we can only spend if we get reimbursement and we have money in that account. So we do have the money and the funds in there. Moving forward, hopefully we'll just have to replace oil absorbent. That was it for that account.
All right, questions on any of those final 3 accounts? All right, let's go back to the Equipment Replacement Fund 4410 and ask if there's a motion to approve that recommendation, positive recommendation by this board of that budget to the council.
So,
Gordy, you won this time. Brandon, you're second, but not,
Second.
you guys are even. All right, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Next, budget 8801, the pension fund. Is there a motion to approve that as presented? Brandon?
So moved.
Mike?
I'll second that.
All right, further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? And finally, Gordy, this is yours, the Hazardous Materials Response Fund.
So move.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All right, appreciate Brandon. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, Chief, appreciate it. I ribbed you last night. It was your first time through presenting budgets, something it's new to you, and you did a great job last night. You did a good job today. But the fun's just beginning.
Yeah, so I've heard.
So, anyway, good job, and thank you all. And
Appreciate
again,
it.
this is a work in progress, so we'll certainly keep up with this. It doesn't look to me like there's any travel requests. So are there any other matters to come before the board? Chief, our guests, questions, comments?
No, sir.
You've been quiet?
Yeah, no comments from here.
All right. Shirley, you get the last word?
I'm good, thanks.
Okay. Well, with that, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody.
All right.
Thanks for the list.
Absolutely, sir. May you ask, and I shall deliver.
On the oil absorbent, if there's an accident on 30, you go out and you have to use a pallet
There you
oil
go, Buster.
absorbent, and there's an insurance payout on that accident, do we get any of that money to reimburse to that fund?
Yes.
Does some of that money come back?
So we have to fill out our own set of paperwork,
Okay,
and we send it to you. We get what we don't get a percentage per se, we get what we used. So if we
Okay.
used a pallet of oil absorbent, we'll send them a quote of what the tractor supply costs for a pallet of it, and that's what they reimburse.
Okay.
It's $600.
I was wondering.
They'll send us $600.